93 days to election 2024. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Citiuation Room, coming to you live from our studio here in Tesano. This is ChannelOne TV. Here on Citiuation Room, we talk purely politics, and as we prepare for the December election, we'll give you the latest in regards to what the campaign and the presidential aspirants or the presidential candidates have been up to. Today, the focus will be in the central region. Last week, we did the Greater Accra region. We made you know what the seats are, the number of seats each political party has in the Greater Accra region. Today, we'll go to the central region, another region considered to be a swing region as far as Ghana's electoral history is concerned. We are told by the Electoral Commission of Ghana that some 39 individuals have picked up nomination forms to be president of the Republic. We'll talk about that as well. When we come back from this break, I'll tell you who I'm doing this show with today. You're welcome back. This is the Citiuation Room here from our studios here in Adabraka. This is ChannelOne TV. As I told you earlier, today the focus will be in the central region. In our studios here in Tesano. I beg your pardon. Today the focus here is in the central region or on the central region. It is considered to be one of the swing regions as far as Ghana's electoral history is concerned. Last week we did the Greater Accra region, which is also considered to be a swing region. And today the focus is in the central region. I'm doing this show today with my friend, my colleague, my brother, no Umaru Sanda Madu, but this time around, my producer, 10 co-host, Fred Tete Jabano. Fred,
Sorry.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We are here again.
Yes, we are here again.
Before we delve into the central region, we are told that the Electoral Commission has announced that some 39 individuals have picked up forms to be president of the Republic. These are those with political parties and independent presidential candidates. Run us through this
So many
particular
people are
list.
interested in becoming president.
You know,
of Ghana.
a lot of people feel they can solve Ghana's problems.
I thought you'd be picking yours.
No, in the near future. I'll do that in the near future.
So like you said rightly, there are 39 people who have picked up their forms to run as president. Out of the 39, 12 of them are coming from registered political parties. The 27 are independent candidates.
Okay.
So
27 independent candidates.
Independent candidates
Wow.
who are seeking to become president. They have only picked up the forms. And,
As to submission
as to whether
is
they
another
will submit is a different story. But from Monday, the 9th of September, the EC will start receiving nomination forms from interested people who picked up their forms to contest as president. So I'm sure by the close of next week, we'll get to know the actual number of people who will file to contest as president in the 2024
This is
December
the largest
elections.
number we've seen so far since we started.
Yes, so far this is
democracy.
the largest number we've seen picking up forms, so far. But as to whether it will be the largest number running for president, we cannot tell until they all submit their forms and go through the process, and the EC would announce who would be on the ballot sheet. We cannot tell whether it would be the largest or would be the lowest, because some, as you said, would drop out, some would be disqualified, some will not meet the threshold. So it depends on the final work by the EC, which would tell us whether this year would have the largest number of presidential candidates or not. But as of now, we have the largest number of people who have picked up forms, who have picked up the forms to contest. They are yet to submit these forms. So this is what is happening in terms of the EC and preparations towards the election. As we know, the EC would also be meeting the NDC on some of the challenges the NDC raised with regards to the voters register. After the transfer and the exhibition of the register, the NDC raised some concerns. And you know that earlier in the week, the EC held a press conference where it said that we had a very robust electoral roll register. Yes, they admitted to some challenges, but said that they were working to ensure that they correct all those mistakes.
Anomalies with it,
at the end of the day, the final register would be one which everybody would accept. So we'll be also looking forward to the meeting with the NDC and the EC, how they're going to trash out their issues. Then we can move on to the next stage of our elections.
Fred, I'll come back to you. Today we are talking about the central region and the politics of the central region. But before that, Let's go to the campaign trail. The MPP presidential candidate or flag bearer, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has been campaigning in the central region. He was in the Ewutu Senya East constituency, Kaswa to be precise, where he shared his ideas, policies, and programs for the Ghanaian people if he's given a chance to be elected president of the republic. The running mate to the NDC flag bearer as well, Professor Jinana Opoku, has also been in the central region, her home region to be precise, campaigning and soliciting for support for John Dramani Mahama and the NDC ahead of the December election. Let's bring you a clip of what the two individuals have been doing within the central region. When we come back, we'll talk about the central region.
Dr. Bawumia in his campaign continues to highlight his achievements as a key reason for voters to support him. He emphasized the road sector, claiming their performance over the past 8 years is unparalleled in the Fourth Republic. At a debut marking the Awubia Festival in Ewutu Breku, in the Ewutu Senya West Constituency, Dr. Bawumia highlighted the Kaswa-Winneba Road project, but refuted claims that it was funded by ECOWAS.
Among the critical roads our committee identified was the 14-kilometer Kaswa-Winneba Road. This road is a road which is 100% financed by the government of Ghana. It is not an ECOWAS road. I identified that road as one of the critical roads, and we have done it just as I identified Adenta to Dodowa as a critical road, and we are doing it 100%.
Dr. Bawumia also dismissed allegations that MP's Common Fund was used for purchasing drip equipment.
The Critical Roads Committee, I came up with the idea that we should buy equipment to help every district to construct roads in Ghana. So we were to buy all districts excavators, rollers, graders, backhoes, tipper trucks, and so on. This was an idea from my committee. It has nothing to do with Parliament. It has nothing to do with Parliament. We came up with the idea, we funded that. It didn't go to Parliament for any approval. So nobody should come and claim that they were responsible for all the equipment that we have sent to every district in this country.
We are currently at Anomabo in the Infansiman municipality of the Central Region, where the running mate of the National Democratic Congress, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, is touring. Here at Anomabo, she is interacting with market women and those who are actually rooting for the NDC to come to power. She also explained the policies of the party to the constituents and urged them to vote for the NDC in the 2024 elections. The market women also put before the running mates their problems and urged the NDC to try as much as possible to address these problems when they come into power.
NDC Abana, Oya Yenra John Dramani Mahama, Oda Suna, yes, Wase. It's on now, Boba here, Yambank, Yambank, and Yakwa, one Kadianka Fidano Crat and Brayanibi. Into the abortion at the Mizama way, yes, you are. Now, I say, and Mira, Sabusa Nozamawa, and Supo in you. Nemumian Fasha, Ned Ashaguanum, Inya Ned Ashaguanum, Obodu baby, now Robia and Bakancho day is Sikeni Jina Quatoma, where was it? Nama Shrawan. That's a work there. Mirio Bianco had the meeting of Bukunuma, Yama was the
campaign team of Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman is here at Aguna Nyakrum and at the Chief's Palace. The Chief, whilst addressing them, gave them some words of support and encouraged them to engage in politics of decency. He had a word of advice for the team. Days after the National Democratic Congress launched their campaign in the northern region, the running mate of John Dramani Mahama has begun her campaign here in the central region, where she is starting from Bibianiha to other parts of the region. The running mate says she is bent on ensuring that the National Democratic Congress wins the 2024 elections. She met traditional authorities here at Bibianiha and made bare the policies of the NDC.
Women's Bank. Say you're me. Ya share Yanam Messiafo, Ehena Yenianum Messiafo, Yanamba, Awozigua, Near Shohana Cinema. A man no boconejim no bayazin. Also, Nadama Yen here with champagne in Sukan. Aqua Bank, Erqua Kaji loan. As I walk back at the Quanaka Fabran, where in ye be. Where I have been in the native. Or then I cover no one crater. It's a band of war hen. Oh, smarty. You're John Dramani Mahama. Oh, I am Shishimu Bia. Oh, say, as I obey.
One of the key policies of the National Democratic Congress when they come into power is the establishment of the Women's Development Bank, which will give soft loans to market women. Now here in Asim Bibianiha, the running mate of the NDC, Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman, interacted with market women and made bare the policy.
$10 million. We have 10 million abra. And now so we have faka 10 million no. Ebedu baby now just your name edu. Now we hear bank be a crana. We hear wafa. We hear ni abema. Ono so bre.
Professor Nana Opoku, NDC running mate in the December election. Earlier, you heard Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, MPP flag bearer, MPP presidential candidate, also campaigning in the central to be precise, the Ewutu Senya East constituency and Kaswa to be precise, where he was also campaigning, pushing his agenda and why he should be the next president of the Republic. These two videos in focus because today we are talking about the politics of the central region. It's known to be a swing region as far as Ghana's electoral history is concerned. Last week we did the Greater Accra region. Today we are doing the central region. I'm doing it with my colleague, Fred Tete Ijabona, who ran us through the history of the central region as far as political elections or anything political is concerned. Fred,
Sammy.
So per the 2020 census or the last census, what's the general population of the central region and the electoral population and other information we need to know?
Yeah, so Sammy, when we look at the central region as it is what we actually call the swing region. Mm-hmm. It's the proper swing region. When we talk about a swing region, that's a central region.
It doesn't stay loyal to one political party.
Never loyal. It's never loyal. It's not as loyal as you. It's never loyal. It moves. It shifts. It shifts and moves as and when it wants to. Mm-hmm. And historically, we can say that the central region has always got it right in terms of who becomes president of the Republic of Ghana. Anywhere the central region goes, so far, the country goes. So yes, we can say it's a swing region, and it's not been loyal. It's been both to the NDC, it's gone to the MPP at different times. But let's look at the central region in its make as a whole. The region as of 2021, when the GSS finished the census, had a number close to around 2.8 million. So to be very specific, the GSS reported a number of 2,859,821 people.
Okay, living in the central region.
In the central region. If you want to make do an estimation from 2021 to 2024, you can roughly give an estimate of about 3 million people who live in the central region. So this is the number of people who make up the central region numbers. It's quite interesting to know how the central region has grown over the years. And how it's now looking like it's merged with Accra from a particular part.
I live in Kaswa.
You're in the central region.
Kaswa is central region, but I don't see myself living in the central region.
Exactly.
I feel more of living in Accra.
Exactly.
Because immediately you cross the toll booth, you don't know whether you're in Accra or you're in the central region.
Yes.
So a town, I would say a town like Kaswa, has become so popular in recent times.
Yes.
And you get more and more people moving into Kaswa. The villages within the central region, a lot of people do not come to Accra to do their shopping again. They rather do their shopping in Kaswa. And when they get to Kaswa, they do all their shopping and then they go back. So you talk about villages within the Gomwa East, the Gomwa West, those places will not want to come to Accra again.
Talking about
Kaswa is now the Accra.
Yes. So talking about your Gomwa East and Gomwa West, can you guess which region, I mean, which district or municipality has the largest numbers in the central region?
It could be my Kaswa.
Where's your Kaswa?
That's the Ewutu Senya East.
No, you're wrong.
Area.
This is the Gomwa East area. The Gomwa East municipality has the largest number of people. They have 308,697 people.
That's Gomwa East.
That's Gomwa East. Followed by Ewutu Senya East, which is your area, which has a number close to 236,527 people. The next from this number now goes straight inside Cape Central Region, which is the Cape Coast metropolitan area.
Yeah.
It has about 189,925 people. So you realize from what we are saying, if you look at the numbers and where the numbers are huge in the central region, it's the intersection of Greater Accra and central region. So Gomwa East, for example, you have areas like Nyanyanyo, Domnase, it goes into Bundumburam, it goes to Ojobi. Then it comes to your area where you have Ofako, Opekuma, Kaswa, and the rest. So you see that you are having a lot of people now moving from mainland Accra into the outskirts of Accra. The outskirts of Accra now getting into central region. So a lot of development. So you have a middle class moving there, a lot of estates and everything, going towards that part of the country, which is the central region. So back to our election and how these things would work out in the election. You realize that now you are having a large group of people who, let me say, are middle class people, majority middle class people moving towards that area. Change the dynamics of thinking, what their requirements are, what their expectations are. It changes all those dynamics. Back again, we look at these numbers, which we've just mentioned, and compare them to the previous elections and the number of voters we had on the voter roll for the previous election. Now we have 3 million people, roughly. In 2016, we had 1,405,976 people registered as voters in the central region.
Okay, a million and about.
1 million.
Okay.
So more than 1.4 million. More than 1.4 million people were registered in 2016 for the 2016 election. That's total number of registered voters. In 2020, we had 1,567,756 people.
That's about 100,000 in addition.
So when you do the calculation, it's about 161,000 in addition to 2020.
Yeah.
So you still realize that the central region numbers keep on growing.
Yeah.
And they keep on growing.
An average of 100,000.
Exponentially, yes.
If it should go this way, it is proper to surmise that in 2024, we'll still have a similar number of, let's say, an average 100,000 and above.
Yes. If you actually even look at the daily numbers the EC used to churn out during the registration, and you put a raw figure to it, you realize that the central region numbers have hit over 100,000.
Okay.
They've hit over 100,000. I think if you look at the raw figures at the time, the central region was the third highest region with new voters.
Yeah.
I may be wrong at this time, but this is a rough figure when you look at the numbers the EC churned out. You realize that the EC stopped churning out those numbers. But when you put together what they are churned out initially, you realize that the central region would be the third highest region with new voters. So it tells you the importance of the central region in our electoral system. It's always been important from 1992 because I said they were always changing and always change who they vote for.
Yeah.
And they almost always predict who becomes president because they're always right, at least from 92 to 2000 and 2020. We realize that the central region has always been right in terms of who becomes president. They always go with who becomes president.
So the perception that is rather the Greater Accra needs to be changed. Because last week we realized that it's not always the case that the candidate that wins Greater Accra region automatically becomes the president. But the central region data has made us realize or know that indeed when the region votes for a particular party and the candidate, that party or the candidate automatically wins the election.
Exactly. The Greater Accra would only give you the sentiment of how people feel about the economy.
Yeah.
It's basically about how people feel about the economy. Anytime people are not happy with the economy, you realize that the incumbent party is most likely to lose in the Greater Accra. But that doesn't affect how they perform nationally. But the central region, as I said, has always predicted how these people perform or who becomes president. They always go towards the line of who becomes president. So that's the plan, or that's the numbers when you look at the central region. The central region, as we speak now, has 23 constituencies.
Yes.
And it's been interesting how these constituencies have changed over the years. At a point now in 2020, the NDC is now on top in terms of parliamentary seats. Has 13. MPP has 10. In 2016, the MPP had more seats, where I think about 17 seats at the time in 2020, as against the NDC's around 8 or 7 seats in 2020. So that's how the central region, so they are not loyal in terms of presidential, it's not loyal in terms of parliamentary. So we'll go and see how the central region
trend has been so far
performing
within the central region
in the last years. Let's start with the 2012 presidential elections. The 2012 presidential elections, you realize that the central region went for the NDC, John Dramani Mahama. Eventually, he won the election. He had 492,374 votes, as against Nanado's 430,135 votes. 45%, 52% for the NDC. We look at the numbers, the vote differences.
62,239.
Yes, 62,000 votes difference. That's for the presidential. This is the 2012 elections. Let's go to the 2012 parliamentary elections. In 2012, the NDC won the parliamentary seats by about 23%. The NDC had about 73% in the parliamentary elections, whilst the MPP had 23% in the parliamentary election. But we'll come back to the parliamentary election because we'll go to a breakdown and have an historical history, historical data of how the parliamentary elections have fared or have gone through the years from 92 way down to 2020. Central region again, presidential, 2012. We realized that we started with 2012. John Mahama won in 2012. When John Mahama won in 2012, he won by 52% of the votes. The MPP's Nanado had 45%. We come to 2016. It changed. And like we said, in 2016, Nanado won the election. Central region gave him 496,000. 668. As against John Mahama's 405,268.
With a vote difference of
91,000. Yes, the vote difference was 91,000. But see what's interesting here. Nanado moves from 430 to 496, close to about 60,000 increase in the number of votes. John Mahama moves from 492 down to 405, over 92,000. Now the question is, there's about a 60-something thousand gap here. That 60,000, that 60 something thousand gap can be explained with the 430 to 496.
Yeah.
The rest of the 92,000, when you take 62,000, we are roughly left to about 30,000 or 28,000 about. These people did not vote.
Okay.
These people stayed away. They did not vote. I mean, if you look at the figures, they just did not vote.
They just decided not to vote.
Yes. And you realize that the MPP had about 7.7 percentage gain, as against the NDC's loss of 8.7 percentage loss in the 2016 elections. How did that affect our parliamentary elections? We'll just go through it and come back to the parliamentary. The MPP gained 12 seats in that particular elections. The NDC lost 12 seats.
Okay.
Let's go to 2016 as against 2020. In 2016, we realized that Nanado had the 496,000 with John Mohammed's 405 and over. There was that 90,000 gap. Come to 2020, Nanado comes again and moves his votes from 496,000
to 602,000.
to 602,000.
111. That's a huge jump, Fred.
That's a huge jump.
That's over 200,000 or close to 200,000 votes gain.
That's a huge jump. That's a huge jump. And the difference was about 78,000.
Yeah.
The difference was about 78,000.
Because if you look at previous of 2016, that was just 496,000. But in 2020, that's 602,000.
Exactly. And Nanado won the election.
And that was
again.
Nanado's second term.
That was Nanado's second term. And he won the election again. But you realize that in this particular election, when you look at the parliamentary, there was a bit of a difference here. The MDC won more seats in the central region. This election had a lot of skirt and blouse. Nanado won the presidential in most of the constituencies.
But his
the
parliamentary candidates lost a lot in the
MPP, lost in those constituencies. Okay. So you see, the people of the central region have a different way of thinking. They may like your presidential candidate as a person, but would dislike the parliamentary candidate. Yeah. And I mentioned last week that parliamentary elections are usually...
They're always different.
And they are always local. The presidential elections
are national in nature.
I remember in 2020, before the election, during the campaign time, our campaign trail, I visited the central region and went to different constituencies in the central region. And there was a message, especially when we got to the markets. When you asked them, who would you vote for in 2020? Their answer was, Nanado. Why? Free SHS. That was the answer you were getting from a lot of the people we spoke to in the markets, in the lorry parks, when we visited the central region in 2020. Their biggest concern was education. And they believed that the MPP had solved part of their financial problems through the free SHS. And they needed to reward Nanado for what he had done. So in 2020, Nanado won the central region partly because of his free SHS policy, which was implemented. So it came as no surprise that some of his parliamentary candidates lost, because in our conversations with them, they told us boldly and clearly in 2020, in some areas, that we would vote against our parliamentary candidate or our MP at the time. One of such constituencies were the Goma West or Goma East, the former communication minister, deputy communication minister, Alex Ada-Aban. When we visited the constituency, majority of the people told us that, look, we'll vote Nanado as president, but we'll vote against the parliamentary candidate who was an incumbent at the time, basically because they felt like there were certain developments within the constituency where they were promised 4 years prior to the election, and that didn't
But they were
take
not
place.
fulfilled.
So
Okay.
if it comes to the presidential election, those are the dynamics. The dynamics, the economy, how people feel the president has done or the government has done generally. So you have economy, you have infrastructure, you have, health, which was a major concern to the people of the central region when we visited in 2020.
Okay.
In 2024, would that be the case? What would be their, what would be the biggest thing they'll be looking out for? What would be their concerns? What they seek more? I think that would determine the 2024.
But hold on there. Whether it will be an upgrade or resetting, we will know come December. You're still watching the Situation Room on ChannelOne TV. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, Fred will continue with the data that he has for us. You're welcome back to the Situation Room. Here we talk politics. And as we prepare for the December election, we'll tell you what you need to know as far as the election is concerned. All the parliamentary seats across the country will be discussed on this show. Today, the focus is on the central region. As my colleague Fred Jabana was taking us through, giving us the analysis and data of how the central region has voted over the years from 2012 to 2020 and how the central region decides who becomes president or which political party wins the election. He told us how it happened in 2012, he told us how it happened in 2016, and he's telling us how it's happening in 2020. And we are projecting into the future of 2024, December, how it's going to be. The central region has not remained loyal to a particular political party. They vote as and when. And whenever they vote for a political party or a particular presidential candidate, that person goes ahead to be the president of the Republic. Fred, so you
before we go on, as I was saying, I told you that the way the people of Central Region vote looks different, and what they desire for always changes. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the numbers before we just quickly go there. We are told by the GSS, and through our estimation, that we have about 3 million people living in the Central region. When you look at the numbers of the 3 million people, the ages between 20 and 49 are about 800,000.
Okay.
Close to 1 million. About 800,000, close to 1 million. Look at the number of people on the voters' roll as of 2020.
Yeah.
That's about 1.5. So if we want to look at this group of people, you realize that the people of the central region are quite a young
population. If you want to put it that way. The Jay-Z's, as they want to call themselves.
Yes, you have
a mix. You have a mixture of all.
A large number, actually, a large number of them falling between the ages of 20 and 30. So the Gen Z's, the millennials,
the Indomie generation.
and their expectations are different.
Yeah.
Some of these people might have graduated from secondary school into university. Some of them might be looking for jobs. Mm-hmm. Some of them might be looking for other opportunities to do other things. And when we go back to last week, you realize that when you look at the figures, majority of the people are looking for employment.
Yeah.
So for me, in the 2024 elections, the biggest issue which I think will be discussed is employment. That is why the two presidential candidates are targeting the youth through different messages on employment and how they are going to create employment. So I won't be surprised if the people in the central region would also look out for employment before even education would come in. So it might change. This time around, employment may come, the cost of living may come before education. So this particular election, the dynamics would be different from 2020, when it was a lot of education and what free SHS was doing for the people. Let's go back to our data and now deal properly with the parliamentary elections in the central region. The central region has always had interesting parliamentary candidates, interesting parliamentary parliamentarians, and even interesting numbers. Let's Our major focus would be from 2012 to 2020. But let's just take a look way back from 96. There were, at the time, 17 seats.
Okay.
In 96, MPP had 3, NDC had 14. In 2000, there was a split. 8 seats for the MPP, 9 seats for the NDC. In 2004, there was a total massacre of the NDC. 16 seats for the MPP, 2 seats for the for the NDC. In 2008, the NDC turned it again, had 11 seats, and the MPP had 8 seats. Now let's come to 2012, a new cycle.
Yeah.
In 2012, the NDC won the central region by 16 seats in terms of parliament. The NDC MPP had 7. In 2016, it turned all over again. The NDC had 19 seats. The MPP had 19 seats, and the NDC had 4. I want us to take a look at something when we finish. In 2020, it turned once again. The NDC had 13, and the MPP had 10. But look at the gap anytime the MPP overturns
It's wide.
the region. It's very wide.
Very wide.
2004, 16
to 2.
to 2. 2016,
19
to 4.
Compared to the NDC.
Compared to the NDC.
The only wide gap you see was only 96.
Exactly.
Perhaps. Which
14
was just 14 to 3.
MPP's 3.
Yeah.
So does it tell us something when we are discussing these things? The numbers actually shows us that when the central region decides to turn up, it turns up
In their
massively for the MPP
Yeah.
in the parliamentary elections. Anytime the NDC wins the parliamentary elections in the central region, the gap is small.
That's true.
You get
I
it?
get it.
So then, in the 2024 elections, what is going to happen? Let's see this. Back to 2020 and how the results felt. You remember that when we were talking about the presidential elections, I told you that there was a lot of skirt and blouse.
Yeah.
There were about 8 constituencies which went skirt and blouse for the 2020 elections. Agona East, Esukuma, Odobem Brakwa, Asin North, Ewutu Senya West, Cape Coast North, Cape Coast South, Gomoa East, Gomoa West. And we are going, what is going to be here is just interesting, the numbers. Just look at the numbers. Presidential, 59%.
So that's for Gomoa and
For
Agona East.
Agona East.
Okay.
The end, Nanado had 59%, then that was 23,704 of the votes. The parliamentary candidate for the NDC won that particular election, and he had 23,247 votes. When you compare to Nanado's votes, it was just about some 200 difference. Now we go to Esukuma Odobem Brakwa, and this is our famous MP.
PC Appeal
PC Appeal
his constituency.
He
made that constituency very popular.
Exactly.
Yeah, very popular. Until he left parliament, I think 2000 or 2012.
The NDC, or Nanado won this particular constituency in the presidential elections. He had 29,878. As against the NDC's parliamentary candidate, who had 28,175.
Alhaji Kwabena Gansa, that's his
exactly.
name. Yeah.
So you would realize that Nanado even had more votes than the NDC's parliamentary candidate in that particular constituency. So then you would imagine the number of votes the MPP parliamentary candidate had. It means that he didn't perform in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
Asin North, 16,067 votes for Nanado as president, who won that particular presidential election. 17,498 for the incumbent Asin North
Yeah.
member of parliament,
James
James
Gyakye Kwesi,
Gyakye
yeah.
now. So you realize that James Gyakye Kwesi performed better than Nanado by about 1,000 votes.
votes, yeah.
And if Nanado had 16,000, it means that John Mahama was raging in the vote was in the range of between 15 and 14,000. Ewutu Senya West, Nanado had 31,000. The NDC parliamentary candidate had 32,000. Again, about 1,000 votes difference.
As I think Gisela Tete or so, yeah.
Yes,
that's a
Gisela
constituency,
Tete. About 1,000 votes, meaning that he had more votes than even the presidential candidate of the NDC and of the MPP. Cape Coast North, 24,000 as against 22,000. Meaning that Nanado was performing better, both against NDC's parliamentary candidate and MPP's parliamentary candidate. Cape Coast South, 20,000, 21,000. Ricketts Hagan was more popular than Nanado, was more popular than John Mahama.
That was just a thousand votes gap.
Yes, just about 600 votes. Gomoa East, 35,000 as against 36,000. Just about 1,000 votes more than Nanado and more than John Mahama. Gomoa West, you had 22,000 as against 29,000 for the parliamentary candidate. If Nanado had 22,000, John Mahama will be ranging between 21,000. But it looks like for Gomoa West, the parliamentary candidate was very popular. 29,000. That's about a 7,000 difference. So you look at the skirt and blouse and how the people vote, and you realize that when they are voting against their parliamentary candidates or as against who they want to become president, the vote margin is not so huge. What happens is that a lot of the times, either party people decide that, look, we dislike this person, so we are going to vote against the person. So we'll punish our parliamentary candidates as against voting him to win the parliamentary seat. Let's move. We've been going around the country, I mean, especially the central region, engaging the constituents, engaging the people of the central region in the past few days and months. And this is our rough prediction, how the parliamentary seats are going to look like through our discussions with the people. This is where it looks like it's heading to. It may change.
But this has been our interaction with the people on the ground.
Exactly.
On our visits to these constituencies, we had interaction with the people, we spoke to them, and this is what they've been telling us, that if elections were held at that particular moment, these were the individuals or parliamentary candidates they were going to vote for.
Likely to vote for
if the elections were held today.
Exactly.
But with just some 3 months to the election, it may change.
And you'd realize,
they may change their minds.
And you realize that when you look at the numbers, the difference between 2020 and 2024 will not be much.
Yeah.
It's about 10-10 and some three constituencies which look undecided in terms of our conversations and discussions with the people. Let's start with the 10 the NDC may win or looks likely to win. Cape Coast South, incumbent Ricketts Hagan. He's going against Ernest Arthur. Ricketts Hagan has been in Parliament since 2012. He became Deputy Minister of Trade, Deputy Minister of Finance. In 2008, he became Deputy Minister of Finance under President Atta Mills, became Deputy Minister of Trade under John Mahama, then went on to become Minister of the Central Regional Minister in somewhere about between 2015 and 2016. He looks to have a seat secured for that particular election. Then we come to Ejumako Enyam Essien, where we have the minority leader. In 2020, it was quite an interesting contest because we had a young man who had just entered that race for the MPP, Dr. Rashid Kwesi Etuafo. Samia, I hope I'm mentioning the name right.
That's the name.
Rashid.
Yeah.
In 2020, he really, during the campaign period, really showed up And people thought the minority leader would have lost that election, but the minority leader won that particular seat. And it looks so likely that in 2024, Honorable Atuforsen will retain that particular seat per our discussions with the people
on the ground.
Let's go to KEA. And no, KEA is the Elmina side of Central Region.
Yeah.
KEA reminds you of our very popular candidate, Putusi, Dr. Indom.
Papa Kwesi
Indom. He had held the KEA seat, moved to MPP, the current local government authority head, Dr. Atuata. Then the NDC took over the seat with Samuel Mills. This time round, the KEA Dennis Pesikweku. This is the gentleman who runs the premix fuel.
Okay.
The chairman of the National Premix Fuel Committee. He is going against Samuel Mills. But we are predicting Samuel Mills to win this particular election based on conversations and interactions we've had with the people on the ground. Asin North, James Dachikwesin. We all know of the Asin North saga.
The embattled
Asin North MP, as we used to call him.
Yeah.
From 2020, he won the election. He was injuncted, went to parliament, voted. Eventually, the court removed him. He was still in parliament. The Supreme Court made a decision. There was a by-election. He won that particular election. He's going against the same candidate, Charles Opoku.
The same guy he defeated in the primaries.
In the
by-election. Sorry, in the by-election.
The same guy he defeated.
That famous by-election.
In the by-election.
Yeah.
In 2024, it doesn't look like it will change. It still looks like James Dachikwesin would retain the seat.
In interaction with the people on the ground, they feel that he's not been treated well.
Exactly.
And so for more or less like sympathy votes or for sympathy reasons, they may want to retain him and continue to vote for him as a member of parliament.
Yes, that's part
for
of
them, they feel that he's not been treated well.
Yes, that's part of the reasons. And also because they believe that he has a good interaction with the people. He has a good association with the people. Don't forget that Charles Opoku was one of the people who were brought in and they said he was an outsider. Let's quickly go to Agonao East. Quinsta Poko Asoya, the incumbent, coming in against Hannah Samoa. We are still predicting Quinsta Poko Asoya to win this particular elections. Ekunfi, Dr. Kwenu, against Nana Edu Ekunfo Donko. Dr. Kwenu defeated the incumbent
in the party's primaries.
In the primaries. So he is new, but it still looks like the NDC would win this particular election, as per our conversations. Gomoa West, Richard John Mensah against Bismarck Besiekum. Bismarck Besiekum at the point was the president of the local government association, the members.
Isn't they call it
NALAC?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bismarck was the president of NALAC. He's coming against the incumbent. We are not foreseeing any change over there. Trifo Etimokwa, David Von D, the incumbent, we are predicting would win this election based on the conversation. Anything could happen. We have some few months to the election, but it looks like the people still want to stick with Von D. Ewutu Senya West, Gisela Tete, Eugene Hayen. Samiri, this is a tough contest.
Yeah.
But on the grounds, it seems like Gisela has the upper hand
interaction
against
with the people on the ground.
Eugene. Yeah. And so we are predicting Eugene to win this Gisela to win this particular election. Infantiman, Dr. Prince Hayen, against the incumbent, Ophelia Mensah.
Recently appointed Deputy Minister for Environment, Science and Technology.
Exactly. Looks like there's going to be a shock here.
An upset.
Where the NDC would win the Infantiman seat. The NDC had consistently won that particular seat.
I remember Aquinas Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
You know, at the point, I think there was a battle between him and Stephen Asamoah Boateng.
Exactly.
Asabi in that same constituency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a seat the NDC does well with. Ophelia Mensah, we know what happened. Her
late
husband
had to replace him.
She replaced the late husband, won that particular election. It's going to be a difficult challenge for her this time round, and we'll see what will happen. But we are predicting that the NDC, Dr. Ahen, would win that particular election. Now let's come to the constituencies we think the MPP are likely to win. Let's start with Ewutu Senya East. Mavis Hawa Kumsin.
She's been member of parliament for that area since 2012. The Kasua Enclave, I'll put it that way.
Going against Nakoyo Okono.
Nakoyo recently was in the news.
Yes.
You remember the voter registration where, she was accused of gun possession, had to go to the
She's been the most active
station.
MPP, NDC parliamentarily candidate in that constituency for a long time.
Yeah.
But it still looks like
she has fire. She has fire.
Yes.
She has fire.
It still
she
looks
has a lot
like
of the boys supporting her in that constituency. But how are they call her the Queen Mother? So the trend has been that since 2012, she's always won the seat. And from our interaction with the people within that area, they don't see a change. They may still want to give to her. But anything can change. Some few months to the election.
Efutu.
It's a foregone conclusion for the member of parliament, the majority leader.
Majority leader.
Yeah.
Asin South.
John Intim, Deputy Minister of Education.
Looks like
most likely that he may win the seat again for the MPP in that area.
Asin Central, Godfred Ntina Mewu.
Yeah, Asin Central, he replaced Kennedy Japan.
Exactly.
Remember, Kennedy didn't contest again, so Godfred replaced
and that's
Kennedy
a traditional MPP seat.
It's traditionally MPP. And the NDC candidate, Nurin Mejim, he was in the news recently. He was suspended by the Central Regional Executive of the party for misconduct.
Yes,
but then the National Executive reversed that particular
misconduct.
Yes. The National Executive reversed that particular suspension, and he's a free man, and he's going to go in that race again.
Upper Dentra East.
Upper Dentra East.
Robert Ako.
Robert is seen to be a strong force within there. Emilia is the incumbent member of parliament for the area, and from my interaction, a lot of people prefer Robert to be their next member of parliament. So from what they've told us on the ground, it's likely they may want to push their votes for him in the election.
Upper Dentra West, Rudolph Amoako.
Most likely.
Eman Lower Dentra Lawrence Jinsam, that's the...
Jisa is the CEO of the Exim Bank. He in the primaries defeated the Deputy Minister for Labour, Victor Roku Bobi, in that primaries, and it's most likely that
Cape Coast North,
Kwawusi, a very popular figure within the MPP politics in the central region, and a lot of people are tipping him to be the incumbent member of parliament for the area.
Then
Esikumo Dobin Brakwa, Winifred, a strong individual. Most people say he may defeat Alaji in that election, and in Aguna West we have Chris, who many say may defeat the member of parliament for the area. So it's an interesting word, but as we said, these are sentiments we picked on the ground when we visited these particular constituencies. And as Fred said, it may change. It's just 93 days to election. In politics, anything can change. Even the last minute, people may change their mind and may want to vote for a different person. It's been another exciting edition of the Citiuation Room that came to you live from our studio here in Accra. I did it with Fred Tete Jabano. Next week, God willing, we'll be back with another exciting show. Be good.